Wednesday, August 15, 2018 at 6:30. This is a workshop. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, just a few notes before we start. This meeting is being taped by TCTV Local Channel 8. If anyone else is taping, please raise your hand and let us know for the record. For the record, I see nobody. Comments for tonight's meeting are not allowed due to the workshop unless it's specifically asked of an individual speciality. Other than that, this is a workshop. Thank you for your cooperation. Discussion items, we'll talk about the town fellow competencies that were provided. Mr. Tanzini?
Sure. So we had received 22 applications. After this memo was received, we got one more that looks like it has great promise. And we had narrowed that list down to 8, which I will do half-hour phone interviews with over the next couple of days. The plan is to then try to do final interviews following a process not too far away from what we used last time. The difference this time is we thought perhaps one member of the select board might want to sit in on the one-on-ones that I have with the individual candidates. Those are during the daytime. They start around 9:30 in the morning, and they do a tour of the town with the two chiefs, then they do an hour with all the department heads, and then there's a one-on-one, more detailed interview. So that, we're trying to schedule that for August 30.
Okay.
So someone would need to have some availability roughly midday, 11 to 2, something like that. When we get that tied down a little bit better, we can let you know. But if the board would like to have someone sit in and observe that process, they could do it. We thought that having it do it with me would be more comfortable for the staff. They can have their conversation, and then we would do the one-on-one interviews. So the thought process.
Just an observer or a participatory?
Either, whatever the board would like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, whatever the board would like.
Can I ask what day of the week is that?
It's a Thursday.
It's a Thursday.
Thursday.
So we have a little time left here yet because there's no great risk to us or to the fellows for doing this next half-hour process. The thought being with a refinement over the last time, which is we would establish a more formal set of competencies that we would expect someone to demonstrate by the end of at least 9 months. And we would set some timelines in between, not just wait the whole 9 months. Catch it early on if someone isn't
So you make some
working out
benchmarks?
well. So, and then, at the end of the 9 months, if it's working out well, you could say to the person, we're going to extend you for another year. And if this works out well, this is the succession. If it's not, you would be better positioned to advertise for a full-time through the normal recruitment process. Now, your consideration of this can run in parallel with consideration of open recruitment, but at some point here pretty soon we'll have to make that decision. So the competencies that we've laid out for you here was that within 1 month, they would need to be able to display a working knowledge of 268A, the open meeting law, public records, 30B, Chapter 149. Now, obviously, they're not going to know every single nuance. We've all been at this. You've been at this a number of years. I've been at this a number of years. And you often end up calling the state, running your question by, taking another look at the statute. And we've created some very specific projects we would have them do as a means of displaying that competency. So if they can't create a decision tree to know whether you're going to follow 30B for construction or 149, that's a fail.
Right.
And you'll know it right away. It may be, you're off here a little bit, change this, but you'll have a sense of it. And constituent services, the organizational structure. And Doug, this was at the suggestion of Doug, I thought it was very good. So once they've gotten the organizational structure down, create some hypothetical scenarios, and kind of put them there, so this happened, which department would you go to, who would you refer it to, who would you reach out to show that they have a sense of who the department heads, how the departments are organized, what their basic role is in the organization. I thought that was a very good ad. Within month 2, personnel and collective bargaining, the basics of hiring, coaching, and unfortunately, firing, negotiations, and administrative tasks. Again, there's some very specific tasks here. Financial over months 3 to 7. The different project tasks, prepare the review estimates, and that in project tasks should be revenue estimates, not compile review estimates. So a lot of that front-end legwork they would do, so this would be a real immersion as opposed to last time.
Right.
Compile the annual budget guidance, they'll have templates to work from, we've done it 2 years now. Receive and carry over the melded templates. Prepare the budget text, participate in all the capital meetings. And I'd like to offer within the next fiscal year a Citizens Academy. These are similar to the police academies. We'd probably do 3 or 4 nights. What does the Community Services Department do? Get the Director of the Council on Aging in, and the Chairman of the Historical Commission, and explain to the citizenry what they actually do and the statutes they have to operate under, as a way to perhaps try to involve more people.
And that would be televised as well.
That would be televised as well, yeah. So if they can't prepare this Citizens Academy module on municipal finance, that's a fail.
Right.
They need to have had the basic knowledge by then. And then in months 8 and 9, that's about, working with others, working as a team. And again, a good suggestion from Doug. He carried this forward to the idea of a tabletop on hypothetical scenarios for the others. So at this point, as we move forward, we have these telephone interviews. We're not at risk, they're not at great risk. But I would like to polish this up because my intent, if we keep moving forward, and again, you've got about 2 weeks before you have to make that final decision on which way you're gonna go. I wanted to give this to the final candidates, and so that they had a clearer understanding of how this is gonna work and then what they would be judged upon. So that if anybody got a little bit nervous or scared, they could drop out early, not after the fact. I mean, this will be, between this and we asked them to prepare some homework to bring in with them. So I would like to get your reaction to this tonight, know about changes you'd like to it, so we can polish it up and consider it done.
Okay. Doug, you have anything?
So I like what you've put together, and it's well-structured. I personally don't have any more, include this, don't include that, or make sure they do this. But I do like what you've put together, and I definitely agree that giving it to them up front, so they can know what's to be expected of them, could take us a long way. And then a question, as you're going through these, are you gonna have them, participate with you, even, as an observer in the beginning? And, so that they're actually involved in whatever decisions or
Yes.
situations that you're you know,
It's gonna be
Involved in or
more of an
mediating.
immersion this time.
yeah.
Um, more structured. I mean, I learned, I still think this has some merit for consideration. And I think we learned from the last time around, how to improve, this. But yes, more
More
participation.
encouragement and, yeah, so I mean, I like the structure and if there's more encouragement, I think that gives us a better chance of success.
And I will say that some of this will depend upon the individual, because if they're working on a project and that project needed to be delivered by X, and they're 2 or 3 days behind, it's hard to then include them in a meeting. That's some of what happened, but yes,
Mhm.
I think the short answer is yes.
Okay. Joey, you know?
And this would give you roughly, as town meeting wraps up, a sense of, okay, so do we want to just finish out the last 3 months here and do a full recruitment? Or do we feel comfortable enough to extend for a year? So the timing lines up
Mhm.
fairly decent, I think.
Good.
The intent would be to try to have somebody start mid-September to October 1, if this is the final path you choose to
Right.
adopt.
And these folks that are in this program, they're like starting the new semester or beginning of the school season?
They are all of them, of the 8, all of them are finished
Okay,
with
so
their
they've
degree
finished the
program,
program, all right.
except one.
Mhm.
And I outlined the concern, we'd be changing the model a little bit. The person would be having to find enough energy to spend some time on their studies, as well as us.
Yep.
That's a concern that I have.
Yep.
But they do understand, when I said to them, well, that's terrific, but I'm a lot more concerned that you take organizational behavior, or you take a basic accounting course, or you take statistics, or you take project management, than I am that you take, public policy development in post-World War II America. You know?
Yeah,
We're going, since you are really just starting, we're going to want to be able to weigh in on the courses that you take that are of greater import to us, because we feel they would help you move along faster.
mhm. So he's just beginning his program?
Is
That
it-
is a drawback with this one
Yeah,
candidate,
okay.
It's his master's, right?
yes.
Okay.
Some of these, some of these were law degrees.
Or what?
Law degrees, some of them attorneys,
Candidates
attorneys.
were law
Yeah,
degrees,
okay. Instead of MPAs?
yeah.
Right.
Okay.
But that has their advantage, and frankly, if they had an MBA, that would have an advantage too.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So what I would need to know is if this seems to make sense, we're gonna polish this off. If someone would like to participate on the 30th, I would need to know who that is. And we would want to, if we're going to go in a different path, we would wanna know that, I would say, by your next board meeting, or the 30th of the, not the 30th, yeah, your next board meeting.
You
That would-
mentioned 2 weeks.
Yeah, that would allow us to
Mhm.
cancel the people, not invest any more time in this approach.
So, Mr. Chairman, I have 2 things.
Mhm.
I like the draft. I think this is a great idea, this second time around. I know that we've been down this road a few times in the 4 years I've been around, but I do have to say I'm a little bit uncomfortable with the fact that we don't have a full quorum here tonight. It's unfortunate, and I know it's summer and everyone has different things going on, and I know that Cam was very involved and had a lot of concerns in this area. I can say that I like this approach, as does Doug, I guess.
Mhm.
So, well done, and I'm glad that we have 8. That seems like a high number to me, but maybe it's average, I'm not sure.
No, it was a good, we had a slightly larger crop this time. Last time we had 14 or 15 applicants.
Mm-hmm.
This time we had 22, 23.
And you were
Part of
able to
that is
do-
we're about 6 weeks earlier. Remember, normally
Makes a
you would do
huge
this kind of
difference.
thing in April and May as they're wrapping up and looking forward to getting their first job. So being 6 months earlier, we're still behind, but we're ahead of where we were last
Catching it
time,
up.
made a real difference. And we had some word of mouth referrals, area managers, a recruiter, one of the councils that we work with. So we had a little bit more referral this time around. And you will have a board to make that final go, no-go decision, I would hope.
Thanks.
Anybody else have anything else? Mr. Tenzine, I think the outline is great. I think the task at hand are well put. I believe that you pretty much hit every aspect of a town administrator's functions and functionalities of a job description to be reviewed and followed. This is a great Plan A. Obviously, as we can discuss further, there should be another plan. I think the people of Templeton deserve a solid plan of action going forward concerning a full-time position here as a town administrator. And I think having that plan and a solid plan in place where we have Plan A, which I think this is a great Plan A, but if this fails or falls through for whatever reason, for the demise of the individual or the lack of, that we should have a Plan B in place that the people know that, well, we tried this twice, we tried it with great success in mind, but it didn't work, so what's the next plan? Plan B is gonna be, full recruitment, partial recruitment, or something along those lines. I will be in the process of drafting something up probably the next couple days to you, to present to the board at the next meeting, to see if they agree with, obviously the plan in place, because I think, having this in place, which is great for the people to see, for them to understand that this person is being evaluated, on a monthly, quarterly basis. And obviously, if it doesn't work, we need to make sure that we have a Plan B in place and the people know that our intentions are to have a full person in that driver's seat with both hands on the wheel at all times. And I think going forward, I think that as long as the people understand that, the townsfolk can grasp that we are working towards resolve to this issue that's been ongoing now for, 5, 6 years, that we now come to a conclusion. Again, financially, we're in a better financial stability state. We have, hopefully we'll have, bond council do their business. We'll have, audits done. We've come a long way, leap years in the last couple of years, and I think a lot of people will be looking at Templeton in a better light than they have been in the past future. So, but I will get something probably in the near, I'll probably get in the next couple of days or a week or so, I'll get something to you that we can pass along to the rest of the board members. But as this is fantastic. I can't, you've hit every aspect that I can possibly imagine here as a town administrator. So kudos to you. Does anybody else have anything else? Does everybody agree with that?
Yep.
Any questions about that? I want the people to know that there is a plan in place, and it's a solid plan. And again, we need to come up with something, that we owe it to the people.
Can I just make a
Sure.
comment that it's frustrating that sitting on the board as selectmen and people not realizing that you really do get what you pay for. Everyone knows that. And unfortunately, over the years, Templeton has chosen not to pay for and not to have economic growth with large companies. And it's at the point now where it hurts, because we really don't have big corporations in town. This is a bedroom town per se, and people don't want to raise their taxes. They want fantastic police departments. They want fantastic firemen and schools and et cetera. And the big step right now is we started with a school coming in. So we're seeing a lot of sales and whatnot. However, if you pay for your service, you're going to receive good service. And so you're getting service that you pay for. And when you look around the surrounding towns, and their tax rate and our tax rate and what they pay their police and fire and their safety and their highways, we really aren't there yet. So it's really up to the citizens of Templeton to decide at some point, you let big corporations step in somewhere, or you pay a little more to get the services you expect. But it's really frustrating to sit on a board and receive all kinds of negativity toward fantastic departments that do, for this community, unbelievable things at a very low pay rate. So there is a turnaround in Templeton, and people should not be surprised that that's reality right now. You pretty much, anywhere you go in life, you get what you pay for. So I just want the citizens to be aware of that and remember that fact in the upcoming years, I guess.
Great, thank you. Anybody, you have anything else on this? All right, moving on to the next topic then. Thank you, Mr. Tenzini. Private road plowing, repairs, and improvements. That's a great topic.
Sure. So what I would like to do is first distribute, and then I'll walk you through 3 sets of documents here. The first is a cover memo that kind of wraps up the meeting that we had last night with the Laurel View neighborhood. And their issue is the most urgent and probably the greatest, but it is one that is shared with another 35 or so unaccepted streets across the town.
Can I interrupt you 1 second?
Sure, of course.
I know you just handed this to me. Obviously, I didn't get this, didn't get this email. So, for the viewers out there, regrettably, I'm unable to attend tonight's meeting due to an engagement with the school committee as an appointed Board of Selectmen representative to the Narragansett Regional School District for their executive session disclosure of their interest-basing bargaining subcommittee meeting. I had hoped that this commitment was only going to be for the first part of the meeting, but we need to re-enter executive sessions again. Unfortunately, due to the commitments being both Phillipston and Templeton, I will not be able to attend tonight's meeting. I have disclosed this as a concern with Wednesdays were adopted as the new meeting date, but I am hopeful you will be able to collaborate upon issues that I have spoken about over a month ago without me. They were clearly defined both in my speech and last week's meeting. I believe these issues to be sensitive and look forward to reviewing the minutes and the ideas the board has come up with at tonight's workshop. Sincerely apologies, Cameron Foyts, Vice Chairman, Board of Selectmen. Thank you, as you were.
So these are the slides that we used last night. You can look them over at some point in the future if you like. And these are a set of sample bylaws and an analysis of some of that I'll touch upon in a few moments here. So again, touching upon Laurel View, but again, this issue goes across a number of streets. So the highlights from last night are that town council advised that the town had no liability as a result of not placing the acceptance of the roadway upon a warrant, has not acquired the roadway by prescription because it had not performed maintenance for the 20-year period of time that would have been required to trigger that, and has no right to use the abandoned escrow monies towards ongoing maintenance of the roadway. He did say that he thought I was being very strict in my reading of the statute that I did not believe allowed us to remove sand in the spring after it had been applied for snow and ice control. He says that removing sand deposited as part of the program's snow and ice removal is sufficiently related to the program and the statute structure that it would qualify as an authorized activity, but did point out that a court could take a strict view of the statute. In other words, is the judge someone like me, or is the judge someone like him? The odds are getting challenged. So we did tell the neighborhood that we went up and we did get that swept, and that we would continue to sweep the areas that we could, as long as the street, that section was in a condition where you can sweep without damage to the machine. During the meeting last night, and the chairman, vice chairman were there, council did advise the residents where they made good points in their favor. He advised, not advised, I wouldn't say, but he did observe that that was a point in their favor, and he openly encouraged them to get a second opinion on his position. He said, you know, it's always good to get a second opinion. This is the way I'm reading the law. Maybe somebody reads it differently. And I think that having him there was a good investment. You know, cost us a few bucks, but it was good to have him there to explain his legal opinions directly to the residents, as opposed to me trying to get them across. During that meeting, which lasted a little over an hour and a half, I did go through a legal structure by which the town could provide certain repairs and improvements and create a dedicated source of ongoing funding. And specifically, I'll go to that third piece of the packet in a moment. The statute does provide a mechanism by which cities and towns can repair unaccepted streets. The bylaw has certain conditions that have to be in it. But once you adopt that bylaw, you then can make repairs. The challenge always is, where do you get the money?
Yeah.
'Cause you
Not
can't
only
use-
where do you get the money the
That
first
would be my
time,
first question.
where do you get the money on
They know they
ongoing?
bought in private, okay.
So, for the ongoing, in one community, we had a special act passed by the legislature, which created a betterment fund. And so, any betterment in the future would be repaid into the fund. Think of it as a revolving fund. And we got a little bit of money in there, repaired the first street, those payments went into the next one. It takes a long time, and unless you are really flush with free cash, or you are a community that just doesn't have to worry about the amount of debt you carry and your ability to make the payments, basically you have to think in terms of some free cash, a capital exclusion, a one-time exclusion for that year, or a debt exclusion. But the advantage of having this fund, as I say, is the money goes back in to the fund, all the payments go in there. So, as we're wrapping up, we also did point out to them that, you know, they did have a right to petition the town meeting. I'm not sure I mentioned the special town meeting takes 200 signatures, whereas an annual town meeting only takes the 10. But we did, you know, make them aware of their rights to do that if they should so wish.
As a citizen's petition?
Yes, yep. So when that meeting wrapped up, they stayed to caucus amongst themselves, and there were kind of a few pieces of homework that I told them I would carry out. First is that I would update you on the meeting. It was a long one, but I encourage you to look at the recording if you get a chance. We told them we would help them get a quote from a private contractor for the repair work, and that we would attempt to keep the required work to the least amount possible to get through at least one plowing season, maybe two. I have advised the interim DPW director to protect us against liability claims, and I did speak to that last night, that it's critical that we not tell the contractor how to do the job. Don't tell them saw cut here, do this, do this, do this. Just tell the contractor what needs to be done. What's the end result that's needed? The second piece of that is that the quote absolutely has to be sent to, you know, Laurelview residents, Laurelview Association, care of a Laurelview resident using a Laurelview address. This is not a town job, can't be a town job, for all kinds of reasons, including liability. So I know that Mark will attempt to get that done in fairly short order. I said that I would advise the select board that it was the consensus of the residents that due to the town's inactions, not putting it on the warrant, and their actions, proceeding to do some maintenance, changing the street sign and others, that the residents felt pretty strongly that it was the responsibility of the select board to move the acceptance forward to a town meeting vote. Now, after they caucused, Laurie, I can't remember, Laurie
Mattson?
here tonight,
Mattson?
yeah, came in and said that they had talked amongst themselves and did not want that to happen at this fall town meeting. And I told them that I would ask the select board if they wanted to consider a bylaw and special legislation for the fall town meeting. It's fast, not a lot of time to discuss it, but the importance of the timing is this. If you do a bylaw in the fall and you submit special legislation in the fall, it is approved by the Attorney General, the bylaw, by January 1. And you get your piece of legislation into the legislature's regular order of business. You're not trying to bring it in late. And there's a possibility, the one that I did for the other town was actually Act 1 of that particular year. If you don't act upon it until the annual town meeting, now set aside for a minute, where would you find the money to do the repairs, okay? If you don't do it until the annual town meeting, you won't have your stuff back from the Attorney General until mid-August. And you might not even get your legislation into a public hearing that year, because it would be considered late filed. It's gonna be at the bottom of the pile, along with everything else. You might not even make it that year. It might have to carry over to the next year. So that's the thing that I told them that I would do, and unless there's any questions on that, I would like to touch upon the packet of material related to the bylaw and a possible bylaw
Mhm.
and special legislation, if that's agreeable.
Yeah, because even if we can't fund it, getting the structure in place is, at least the first step, so.
It is.
Yeah.
So, Chapter 40, Section 6N allows the temporary repairs of private ways. And there are 8 elements of the bylaw that you must, that you are supposed to touch upon. And when you see some of the samples, you'll see they didn't really, and you'll wonder, how did it get past the Attorney General's office? But these are the 8 elements of the statute. The type and extent of repairs.
Bless you.
So in some, it's just simple patching, in others, it's repair of existing drainage, in others, it's you can install new drainage. Some are so archaic that they still provide for the oiling of streets. If drainage shall be included as an authorized repair, if the repairs are required by public necessity, in other words, it might say, and such repairs may be made only upon a finding by the Board of Selectmen that they are required by public necessity for the purposes of emergency, whatever you want to say. But you have to say if it's going to require that finding or not. The number of percentage of abutters who must petition for the repairs, if betterment charges shall be assessed, the liability limit of the city or town on account of damages caused by repairs, if the way shall have been open to the public use for a term of years, and if a cash deposit shall be required for said repairs. So on the next page, and this was expanded since last night, I asked Brian, the intern in our office, to do a little bit more looking around. And he reviewed 15 sample bylaws, and those are all in your packet.
Mhm.
So for instance, can they install drainage? Well, you'll see some are yes, some are no, some don't touch upon it at all. The percentage of abutters who must petition for repairs. That runs anywheres from 50% to 100%. And some of them are different. So for instance,
Yeah.
one community says 2/3 of the owners of lots. So if there's 9 lots, 6 owners have to sign the petition. They might only have collectively 600 feet. Somebody else has 1,500 feet of frontage, but they have enough to do it. In another one, for instance, Plimpton, it's 50% of the linear footage. So if it's a 3,000-foot roadway, one person owns 1,500 feet, and 12 own the others, petition only has to come from the one property owner. So you need to think about how, if you're interested in doing this, that would lay out.
We have some with no petition required.
Some are no petition required. The Board of Selectmen simply approves it, orders it or approves it.
Right.
Now, in that case, Marshfield, so in Situate, it's simply the Board of Selectmen's approval, but you'll also notice that they can only do, once you get a chance to look at it, they can do like minor filling.
Minor only.
They can clean an existing culvert, they can't install a new one. They can fill a pothole, but they can't grade. So, so you really need to look at
Okay.
the total package of it. Is a betterment assessed? In many, yes, and some, no. But for instance, Munson doesn't require an assessment, but they set their ordinance, their bylaw.
At
That's the
500.
maximum they'll spend at $500.
Right, so 2 loads of
That
gravel.
was, today,
Not gonna get much for that.
yeah, today there's probably 2 loads of gravel and, an hour or 2 for the guys to
Spread it around.
hand rake some of it around. It's not,
That's-
$500 is not a lot. And some don't require an assessment because they require you pay for it in cash up front. If there is a betterment, how long? So in one community, they allow up to 20 years. In others, it's 5, and some it's 10. General rule of thumb is you want to recover the betterment for about as long as you think the repair is going to last. If it's a gravel road and you're putting in a couple of new cross culverts and you're trimming up some trees, you're removing a rock that's popped up above, maybe grading it up, those set of repairs are gonna last at best 3 years. So maybe you give people 5, but you certainly don't give 20,
Right.
because they're still paying for this down the line.
Concord's got 50.
Concord's got 60.
So the year's open, how
Oh,
long does the
yes.
road have to have been
50
open to
years,
the public?
60%.
So Concord's requires that the road have been open to the public travel for 50 years before they'll do a repair. Others are 6, 10, 30, 10 years or 15 years would take care of most all of your streets on the list that I've seen. And it would address all of you.
Okay.
Is a cash deposit required before proceeding? In some cases it is, in some cases it isn't. In some cases, if you're gonna do the job with workforce, a cash deposit's required. If you're contracting it out, it just is a betterment assessed. So that's kind of an overview of these 15, and they all are all included here.
Right.
And if you have the time and the energy, there's another probably 200 out there.
Great job, Mark Shea.
So, we would need to know in fairly short order if you think you want to take a bylaw that allows for the repair of private ways to the fall town meeting and be able to schedule some time to have a discussion of what are the different elements, now that you see, this town did 50, this town did 5, I think 15 will take care of us, I like 15. We would need to schedule some time to kind of work through that, of what you folks would like. I could draft it up in pretty short order, it's fairly simple.
Okay.
So next becomes the special legislation. In this case, the legislature authorized a betterment fund by which all of the repayments went into the betterment fund, and that fund was allowable for expenditure without further appropriation by the town meeting. The selectmen had the ultimate ability to make the next betterment. The reason for that was a belief that this can be a fluid situation, especially given the process that's followed, where it's the end of the plowing season, when you really sort of know if a road is deteriorated to the point where it needs some work. And if you had to wait then a year to get to town meeting to appropriate some of the monies, that the winter is lost. There are, I believe, there is one other community that saw this and adopted it, though I can't remember where right now.
good.
This is not an immediate solution to the Laurel View issue, it's not an immediate solution to Evans Circle, it's not an immediate solution for anybody else. But it starts to put a place in structure that if you could then find the monies, whether they're from free cash, a capital exclusion, or a debt exclusion, you can start to help some of these streets with this issue legally.
Because you're right, there are other streets in this community that are the same or some worse than.
40-some.
Yeah.
Yeah.
exactly.
40 plus, right?
Well, it's, you know, it
And we
depends on
take
which
care of
list you look
13.
at, and that's the first thing, is to clarify the list, because,
We have to update the
but
list.
35 plus or minus, absolutely.
Yeah, but like Stevens Way, that's another bad street, private way. I mean, which again, me personally, I go down and see it myself. I'm just not gonna, you know, I mean, I'll take Mark's word for it, don't get me wrong, but I wanna see it myself. So I've driven down Laurel View, I've driven down Stevens Way, I've been over to some of these other streets that are still dirt here in town. They're not even paved, just to see what the conditions of the roads are. You know, not just for the people, and people sometimes are, in the private way sector, the ones that allow, I think there's 6 private ways that we plow? I think there's 6 though, correct?
13.
Is there 13? All right, so if there's 13, again, it depends on the list that you look at. The residents, I mean, obviously, we plow the streets for everybody. But, I mean, when it comes to private ways, the purpose for plowing and sanding and stuff it's for the residents, don't get me wrong, but, I mean, also for the emergency vehicles that need to get down those roads, which are very important, concerning fire, police, and ambulance, et cetera. But like you guys said last night, you know, there's the law, and then there's the political piece of it, and then obviously we have to have the humanity piece. But obviously, you as a town administrator, like I explained to you, you don't have the pleasure of having any of those except the law piece. So, and that's what we pay you for. I want to make sure the point is clear that, at least from my perspective, I mean, as a selectman, I mean, it's your job to make sure that the law is followed and the policies are followed to the letter of the law. Or you can be finding another job yourself. Because that's what it's supposed to be doing. That's what we're here for. A lot of talk last night. I thought it was a great discussion. I think a lot of the Laurel View residents were very straightforward. They did a lot of research. A couple residents in particular, they had a lot of documentation and paperwork. And I mean, everybody had, you know, questions, and I think most of the questions were answered. And if they weren't answered, I would hope they would get back to you, you know, via email or telephone call, et cetera, so we can get, you know, those questions answered. I think the plan that's in place right now is pretty good. I mean, for us to have a plan to go forward and put it on the town meeting floor as a warrant, as Ms. Mattson said last night, they didn't want to do that because I think that would be catastrophic to the community. I don't think that would pass. I don't think, once the town realized the cost amount that it would cost to repair that road to the standards of the Department of Transportation, I don't think it would pass, personally.
And we can't have them pay betterment ahead to fund the account and then, so we create the bylaw on the account and we say, okay, your cost to fix it's gonna be, $1 million. So your betterment for, 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is X. And you pay a few years and then, we would have money to do the repair at that point. I mean, I know it's not super,
The betterment statute really envisions, first,
right, the expenditure and
you're
then
chasing,
repayment of the
you're chasing
expenditure.
costs. So
Yeah.
if you were trying to
Yeah,
save ahead of
trying to get
time,
it back.
Yeah,
depending upon what the product is, what's going on, I mean, the costs on equipment. So those costs, we brought the Capital Improvement Committee last November for this truck, that cruiser, this thing. Those things were up 8%, give or so, within the 8 months that we went to order them,
Mhm.
okay? If you're chasing oil down, yeah, the estimate might hold.
Mhm.
But if you're chasing oil up, the cost of the asphalt could be increasing astronomically. So I think you've just got some practical things there. The larger problem is that the statute really envisions, you do the project, you know all the costs, you apportion all the costs, and in fact, they can't even go on to the taxes until the November bill. So the statute's very specific, and I don't think we could make it work in the manner you're thinking, even if the economics made sense, Doug. And there may be times in the marketplace when, yeah, in the 86, 83, 84, 85 recession, there were cities out there that were bonding as much as they could, and they were paving every place they could because they were getting the asphalt laid in place at such low prices.
Well, we have to,
Tough judgment.
the liability of the town is one of my concerns. So, I mean, going with the bylaw and special legislation, I think is probably a good first step.
If you think this is of interest to you, I can draft a bylaw that has blanks in it. So that the percentage of property owners.
Mhm.
Then we can have that discussion and start to fill in those blanks. I can get a start on it if you think this is of interest to you.
I mean, that would be one of the best things, at least protect the town from any type of future liability, from what I can see.
Yeah, I would agree. I think, doing the bylaw and the legislation,
Mhm.
I mean, I think they have to go hand in hand, because again, we'll never be able to afford to not do it with the betterment. So I think we need the legislations to do the betterment account.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay, then I will start to draft something that has enough blanks at the critical areas, would the board be open to having a special workshop on, I know, I hate to ask you to do this, I hate to do it as well, but given we're trying to get this ready
Mm-hmm.
for October 18th, which means I need to be done by sometime in September 15, or thereabouts, which is your retreat for goal setting.
Mm-hmm.
Would the board be open to a workshop on August 29th to work on the bylaw and some of the other warrant articles?
It's Wednesday. Yes.
I can say I'm unavailable that week. I think that we've put a lot of energy and time into the summer, and I think if you look at surrounding towns, but again, I'm on vacation that particular week, but
What about the
unfortunately.
following Wednesday, which would be September 5th?
So I will be in Quebec the last week of August, but should be around the 5th.
September 5th is good for me.
Sure.
Okay.
September 5th? Okay.
And I will get that out far enough ahead of time so that if people aren't available, they can maybe just pop in and we can talk about what their thoughts are. it should be 2/3 or 50%, it should be this.
So we can
it should
review
be
it
that.
prior.
Absolutely, absolutely, I can have this out in, 10 days.
Okay. 6:30,
Yeah.
and that will be the only thing on the agenda?
Well, the fall town meeting warrant.
Yep,
A
sounds
draft.
good.
My hope would be to have a fall town meeting draft warrant
Okay.
for you.
Okay. Well, I think that's a good starting point, and again, collaborating, working with the residents, I think is key. As things were said last night, and I think you said it last night as well, why there weren't meetings back in 2005 with the residents, with the town, really concerned me. So, having these meetings with the people, I think is crucial. I think communication is key, like you've always said, I've always said, and I think moving forward, as long as we keep that communication lines open with the town, the residents, and us as the elected officials representing them, we want to make sure that we're doing the right things as well. Okay. Anything else on that?
No, I have my direction for the moment.
Okay, excellent. Do you have anything? Okay. Possible articles for the fall town meeting?
So I wanted to touch upon some of the things that come to mind and see if
Mhm.
there are other concerns that you might have. The first is an article to appropriate funds to pay the Narragansett Regional School District debt. That was missed at the annual, and we had money to pay it, but the state didn't like the account we were gonna take it from to pay it. The second is some operating supplements. The numbers here are just a cut and paste from another warrant, but the Stony Bridge Road will probably be $10,000 or north. It happened in the first 2 months. It's nothing that anybody really anticipated whatsoever. And the thought is, because it's so early in the year, if we can backfill those accounts, we'll be able to be in decent shape to get through the rest of the year. And all costs are not in, but I'm gonna tell you they're in the 10,000 plus or minus by the time we were done. This next one, and we did meet with the state on, John, you were there, it was last Thursday.
Yes.
And it was not a source of cash, it was a source of advice. There is a cash grant program that we can apply for once we know what we actually need. That grant program doesn't actually open up until I got the notice of it today. I think it's like February of next year. And then they make the awards. So they're telling us that to do the field data collection and recommended replacement structure, which has to analyze all the hydraulics, do you put the culvert back? Do you put if you put one back, do you put it, I'm just
We don't have one.
I'm just working off of some notes
Okay.
here, Julie. How do you put it back? What's the possible cost? So that study, I'm told to expect that to be in the $25,000 to $35,000.
That's just for
One
the,
small bridge with 2 houses, correct?
Yeah.
25,000.
It's not actually a bridge, interestingly enough, once you
It's
get out
really-
there.
Yeah.
It's really a causeway that has a
Over a
culvert
brook.
through it.
Yeah.
So I have reached out to John Henshaw, I've been trying to stay in touch with him.
Mhm.
Can they assist with CPA funds, because it's open space,
And
It's-
it's historic.
it's
I was
recreation.
gonna say, isn't
And
it
remember,
storage?
though the state
It's
owns
not, though.
much of that pond, you own a number of acres up on Dudley Road at the
Mhm.
headwater.
How many
Yeah.
acres does Phillipston own in that area?
None.
And does the engineer think the historic bridge will be repairable, or
It's
is
not
it a
historic.
takedown and?
Yeah,
It's not on the list.
Well,
Not been identified.
So what's the engraved stone over there that talks about it being built in
Mhm.
17 something or other?
Well, it may be certainly of a historical character. It's not listed on the state register that I could find. It's not
Right.
listed on the national register. Although the CPA allows for funding projects that are of, I think, of
Historical
significant
significance.
local interest, or, I forget exactly what it was.
Mhm.
Though it has to be restored to the Secretary of the Interior standards. What those would be for a causeway, I don't know. I can tell you that if you involve any state money, DOT money, federal money, the odds of just fixing the culvert and calling it a day are pretty slim. It's a 16-foot roadway. It's basically a 22-foot causeway with about 15 foot of pavement, and stones that kind of stick up a little bit as a curb stop, which have not always worked. I'm told of at least one car that they've fished out of there over the years.
Okay.
So they're gonna, we just don't know. We're gonna have to do this study, and it may rub some folks the wrong way, but I think we need to look at all the options.
Mhm.
It is used, I'm told, to quite an extent by a lot of folks, particularly from the Phillipston side, as a cut-through, so they don't have to go, up Berry Road and around. I guess it
I
does
use it
save
a lot.
them.
A couple of times a week I use it.
Not
So-
anymore.
Fall in.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
So
Not
I guess,
anymore, right,
so I
Doug?
guess it does add where, depending on where you live, it can add 4 miles plus or minus to your commute. So my thought is that we do the study, we try to get CPC help, and that study needs to look at
Where
Yeah,
where are
pulling
the
it out.
funds coming from for that study?
They're gonna have to come from free cash. It's the only source of money we have.
And again, this is a
I
project.
might be able to get chapter 90 money to pay for it, but I'm doubtful. And I'm hoping that the CP would contribute a substantial amount.
For the engineering piece, I don't think they can,
Well, there's still, I don't wanna get too far ahead,
okay.
Yeah.
because they have 3 potential criteria that they might be able to help under.
Okay,
Open space,
yep,
Mhm.
wetlands,
Yeah.
natural, aquifer
Habitat,
recharge areas, habitat areas, all count. Recreation,
they fish there.
There, yeah.
somebody puts their kayak in it, I don't know.
I wouldn't swim there, but,
Yeah. And then there's the historic.
Yeah, but
So,
you're right, that's probably.
Depending
Yes.
upon
And again,
the
I don't know.
solution that you decide
Okay,
the most effective,
It took a little while to get skill
Um,
hall funding, really.
I don't
Yeah.
know. But that's a potential one.
And that's.
We have the potential for capital expenditures. We have 2 projects out to bid right now, rebid. We've changed the spec a little bit to try to bring them in. But those may need some additional money, and as I mentioned, a couple of the pieces of equipment, costs went up.
mhm.
So we'll know in a couple of weeks. We have those bids due, when, Holly? 29th of August. That lets us get back to capital, let's get to the board, and you may decide, nope, we're not gonna support any more money for these, and we're done. But at this point, I'm carrying this as a potential warrant article. Deposits to stabilization in the OPEB accounts. Financial management plan calls for free cash, subtract this, and then deposit these
Percentage of-
sums
yep.
into the funds. I'm not sure where we are on the advisory committee bylaw. We sent that to them twice, no response, but Cameron brought to you
The meeting,
a
that hasn't been
suggestion
scheduled yet.
to have a meeting, so I'm just as a draft. The animal control bylaw needs, some real work. Unaccepted road betterment and whatever we need for green communities. The codification turned up much more work that needed to be done on the bylaws than simply codifying them. So I'm still awaiting from Tom Harrington and town clerk whether or not they think we're gonna, really make October, or they feel there's some bylaws we should just get done as standalones and then do the codification in the spring.
Okay.
Are there other things that have been on your mind that you want me to add to this? At this right point, it's just a tick list, it's just a list, so I have it, in our minds.
Okay. Doug, you have any?
So I think, like you said earlier, a little more of the funding for IT since the 365 quote was a little higher than planned and.
And the highway
Highway
issue, which
thing,
I
yeah.
think is
Mhm.
more than we were aware of.
Yep.
I think we talked too about trying to request more dollars from the CPC for the Scout Hall project.
To finalize the Scout Hall, I think we might be okay right now. I
But we
mean,
don't
it
have the bid- we
probably
have the
wouldn't,
bids out for the
it
sheet rock.
probably wouldn't hurt, but what happened was the delay in going out, but I think we've corrected that with our few conversations. I have a
hopefully.
meeting on Monday. He's
Good.
more than willing to jump in, he's doing a walkthrough and, gonna put out those bids again. I think that the bids that are going out are too small, and I did recommend at one meeting that, maybe the bids should go out of the Selectmen office again. It seemed more speedy and where we're sort of in between, and do you really want to put it on your DPW person? But that's totally up to you and how you want to move things around. But he's more than willing, we spoke on the phone today. Again, he's already put out a bid for me, and I just had a meeting last week, so it's moving along again. It kind of got stalled, so.
The only
We
thing
might
about
need a little more,
that
but I don't think
is,
that much.
Okay.
fortunately, Doug's chairing the CPC, because I think that when we get some numbers, we're gonna have to send them a quick memo,
Mm-hmm.
because I wouldn't be surprised if town meeting wanted an updated report from CPC on the projects, or
Mhm.
community,
And they should.
capital planning.
Right.
Mhm.
I knew what
But
you
we can
meant.
still get that done by the middle of September, I would think.
Yeah. And when's your next meeting anyways, Doug, for capital
So
plan?
we haven't scheduled a meeting yet for the new season. Probably will be mid-September.
Okay,
It's typically when we start.
all right,
Which will work out fine. We
Has
can
your
give
committee
them-
grown a little bit, or no?
yeah.
So we have one member at large. We have still one vacant member at large seat.
One vacant member at large seat.
Yeah, yeah.
And we're still advertising all those.
We do, and I try to use the opportunity in each
At each
board
select board
meeting to
meeting. Yeah.
let the community know of, we don't keep hammering the same ones.
Yeah, mix it up
I
a
mean, there's so
little bit.
many.
There are.
Yeah.
There's-
Are we reviewing that list at this point to update it, like committees that haven't met in the last 10 years? Are we like dissolving those committees at this point? Is someone looking
I
at
think
that?
the- I think the
Because they
only
started to
committee
look at
is
that,
the
but,
Stormwater, whether or not
Open
that's
space?
really required. Now, open space,
Some of them are required by statute too.
right, but the
I-
ones that are
yeah.
not,
I think
weren't we gonna
have
start weeding
dissolved a
those
few
out?
already.
We've dissolved a
Yeah.
few.
Yeah.
And I can get that list from Carol Harris?
Of the committees?
Yeah.
I haven't.
Oh, you have it,
Holly's
okay.
the best source on that.
Okay.
Can you send that out again to us as far
Yeah,
as
can we
who's
just
on
have
it?
a list?
Just so I can get an idea,
Mm-hmm.
that'd be great.
And one or two of them are really staff committees that don't need to be on the appointment list because they don't call for citizens.
Right.
And it's the DPW director. It's
Right.
always the DPW director.
Right.
Right,
Doesn't matter who it is, doesn't matter what their term is. So there are one or two we can probably
just,
take off that
just
list.
clear off that
Yeah.
list.
Okay.
So if there are some things that come to mind, the sooner you can let me know.
For
Even if
articles.
all I do is,
Have we received any citizens
plug
petitions?
them in with all the question marks
That was gonna
behind
be
them.
my next
You
question.
know, just as a way of kind of keeping track of what we want to do.
You can ask.
Can I ask, have we received any citizen petitions for fall town meeting?
Not as of yet, and that,
No Florida and the
Um,
water thing?
it would take quite an issue to do that, because remember, your fall town meeting requires 200 signatures.
Okay,
Okay. And,
Which is a little
They
different
tend
than
to
what-
be,
Then
they
10.
tend to be pretty rare for the falls.
do you, have you heard back from the advisory committee concerning the meeting with their two folks and us on that bylaw?
I'm not sure I'm in that loop. We sent that to the, I sent that to the advisory committee. I sent it twice.
Okay.
And the communication came through a board member, so at this point,
I'll
I
work
kind
it.
of assumed that that's
I'll work it. Yep.
between,
Amy, when's your next meeting?
Tomorrow,
What time is it tomorrow?
6:30.
6:30?
That was the holdup. You guys met last week, and we didn't meet last week. We
Right.
had met the week before,
Understood.
so we meet tomorrow.
Okay, I'll see you tomorrow night.
Cool.
Anything else on that?
that's all that I have.
Any questions on the fall town meeting warrant? Okay. Amendments to the personnel policy regarding pregnancy in the workplace? Did you send the draft out on that?
God bless the legislature and their
They changed it
great
again.
intents.
Yep.
This is in response to a statute that they adopted that prohibits discrimination because of pregnancy
Mhm.
or pregnant-related conditions, requires certain accommodations.
Right.
And so, truth be told, I just
Cut and paste.
sent, nope. I sent an email to Tom and said, Tom, will you please send me an amendment to the personnel bylaw that will comply with the statute?
And this is what he sent you?
And this is what he sent us.
Excellent.
I saw that.
That's what
So
he did.
unless there are questions on it, I would have to get those to Tom.
No.
But otherwise, I would like to move it forward for action at your next board meeting.
Sounds great.
And this came right from the statute, right? I mean, I'm reading this, I'm like,
It came from Tom. I said, Tom, please write me an amendment that will meet the test of statute, and this is what he sent me. I really, I can't tell you any more than that.
okay, wow, this is well-written.
Yeah, but it's not unreasonable.
No, it's
so
not. No, these are all,
Yeah, it's reasonable
Yep.
stuff.
sounds good.
Go for it.
I do just want to touch briefly on another
I
statute
didn't want to touch that.
that just passed. You may have heard about the grand bargain. There was 3 pieces of citizen petitions out there, one to reduce the sales tax to 5 1/4, one to make the minimum wage $15,
Mhm.
one to require a paid week.
Oh, yeah, that's a
Right.
$15 thing going.
So the legislature did come up with a statute that, was acceptable to absolutely nobody, which means it was right on the money. And in return, the 3 different groups that had their citizen petitions withdrew them. So truth be told, it probably was a good thing that the legislature and the governor came together on this.
Mhm.
First thing is minimum wage goes up to $12 on January 1
Yep,
of 2019. It's not in our budget.
$12?
yes, so it goes up $1.
And then January 1 of every year following, it goes up 75 cents until it hits $15. The town is not subject to the minimum wage statute, but if you'll recall, has adopted
We did.
the state. So I'm gonna need to look for some money to get through the balance of the year, and that's gonna put pressure on every one of our budget years. The greater problem is that given some of our wages are $13.50 an hour, it's going to be harder to get some of our people when they could go to a McDonald's or Target or something else and get the same as what we pay them with a lot less stressful job.
Now, what's the plan as far as that goes? Is there a plan, I mean, because obviously it goes up $1 for minimum wage. Is there a plan in place that the employees will then just all go up $1? Or are you gonna look just like the employees at, the minimum wage employees and say, okay, you guys are at 11, I got to bump you up to 12?
My plan is that the poll workers and the others will have to go to 12 if we continue to have student interns, because minimum wage doesn't apply to us. Perhaps we can look at having a slightly lower wage for our student interns. But then within 2 years, 3 years, as Julie noted earlier, you're gonna have to look more seriously at dealing with all the rest of your employees, because as the gap closes between what you pay and minimum wage, it's gonna make it that much harder for you to get
To get
the part-time
qualified
help.
people or even
Um,
part-time people in the positions, yeah.
And, you know, unless you wanna revisit your position that the town will follow the state's minimum wage. I don't think that's necessarily a good thing to revisit.
No, I don't think
No.
that's a good thing to revisit.
We'll lay that out for you in an option, when we bring you the potential of the student rate being slightly different than for everybody else.
You know, the student rate I got, I mean, but I'm just looking at the work rate and the employees that we have. And yeah, some of them are making, you know, 16, 17, 19, $20 an hour, I got it. But if the lower earners are all going up, having to go up $1 by what the statute is, it just doesn't seem,
We can look at it as part of the
it just
fiscal
doesn't
'20
seem,
budget.
I think, it just doesn't seem fair to me, because again, we're just gonna keep offsetting our balance, and we're just gonna be, you know, we're just not, we're not hurting, we're hurting ourselves. And we're
Not
hurting
gonna
our
catch up.
employees. I mean, because now we're gonna play
Yeah,
double catch-up, and
feels
it's
like
like,
we're
if we
never gonna
don't
do
fund or
catch-up.
budget that in the right way, looking forward in the next year or 2 years, and it's gonna keep hitting us, and keep hitting us, and keep hitting us. I mean, you're talking 75 cents up until, you know, they reach the $15 mark. You're talking 4 years, so I mean, that's gonna be, now you get $15.
2023?
So now you get $15 an hour as minimum wage. And with that $15 an hour is gonna affect everything in the Commonwealth. The price of milk, the price of fuel, the price of orange juice. Everything's going up. Dunkin' Donuts will go up, because again, now they're gonna pay their employees $15 more an hour, you know, so the coffee's gonna go up. If we don't have a plan in place, or if we don't task the advisory committee with the plan to say, hey, why don't you guys look at this, and say, come up with a plan, and how do you think we can overcome this?
Yeah, so I mean,
You know what I mean?
think if you've got, so you've got an employee here at 19, you got an employee here at 11.
Right,
And the minimum wage is going to 12. So this 11 is gonna get $1.
right.
But it doesn't make sense to give the $19 an hour person to 20. You should calculate what's the increase from 11 to 12, and then this person who's 19 should get that same percentage increase. Because, just like you said, the more the minimum goes up, everything else is going up.
The
So it's
problem
not
is- the
fair
problem-
Can I
to
just jump into
penalize,
this
I see what you're saying.
it's not
conversation
fair to
quickly? Can I
penalize.
just say this?
Yeah.
And is this more important than trying to bring in economic growth for the town of Templeton? Because we're at a workshop tonight,
Mm-hmm.
and we know that this is gonna be a headache years from now. We don't have any game plan.
So, but again, I think it is
We need to
important.
build
It
those
may not be
committees
more.
to start looking at
But
bringing
if you
in
just gave
revenue
this person
before
a
this hits us.
3% increase, you just gave this
But
person a
the-
3%
The
pay cut.
the challenge isn't with your people who are
It's
making
not up here,
20,
it's down here.
21, 22.
But it's,
The challenge is
equity.
gonna be with the people that you're paying $13, $50, $14,
We're gonna get hard,
$15.
hit hard.
Right.
And I don't know what the solution is right now. Julie is correct that economic development
It's huge.
is the solution. Otherwise, you're locked in this, you know, slash override thing. I
Right,
just wanted to make you aware of this
I
that's
appreciate
coming
it.
down.
thank you.
Because the other piece that's coming down is we have to now provide 12 weeks of paid leave for family situations and 20 weeks of medical leave. And we pay, there's a
We're talking
new fund.
FMLA stuff?
It's separate and in addition to FMLA overlays on top of it. It will be paid for with a 0.63% tax, of which the employees must pay half, and we, the town, must pay half. That takes effect July 1 of 2020. So in addition to the
And
budget
that's a separate budget.
pressures,
That's a separate account, right?
it's like our unemployment tax and our
I got you.
Medicare and our
Gotcha.
FICA and everything else.
And, have the employees been?
Well, I want to understand the legislation first.
I understand.
It's
Okay.
only been out there for 10 days
Yeah,
now.
right, a week.
I want to understand, you know, unemployment they don't pay, and we only pay on the first, you know, I think $15,000.
Right,
Medicare is paid on everything. You know, so I want to understand it first, but I wanted you all to be aware of it.
Sure.
Because it is going to impact the budget cycle. and the further amendments to the personnel plan.
Gotcha. Okay, anybody else have anything else on that? No. Okay, let's go into, let's discuss some revenue streams. Now, obviously, this was one of Mr. Foyt's, talked about revenue streams as far as looking at every option that we have to build revenue within this town, get all new revenue that we can from the community. I'm paraphrasing, I think, based on his speech, that not to overtax the taxpayers, to compare us with other richer communities. I think that's what he said. I might be paraphrasing, so I'm sorry, Cameron, if that's not what you said, but it was something along those lines on how we can end up building, how we can build more revenue streams within the community, and what rock have we not turned over. If anybody has anything to add to that, I can add a couple things. The first thing I'll add is, that was one of the major things I looked at when I first came into office 2.5 years ago. I mean, the first thing I said my first year was the food tax. I mean, we looked at revenue streams, food tax. That was the first thing I said. Do we have it now? Yes, we do, thank you, because again, that's only another $45,000 to $55,000 a year based on the department revenue, which is gonna go towards our capital assets for paying some of those assets. We looked at the insurance. That was another one of our ideas, not so much to hurt the employees, but to increase the employees' contribution, to decrease the town's contribution, which increases our revenue base. So we looked at that. Has that been initiated? Yes, it has. We looked at the economic development. We had an economic development committee, which I was originally on, and we looked at, different businesses. We looked at a lot of things with Mr. Eaton. We put together some stuff with Mr. Castle, trying to, bring us into Boston to try to sell Templeton as a agricultural community, but we did have some key infrastructural assets here in the town based off of Exit 20, which there was the 4 quadrants. One was really kind of wet, but the other 3 were manageable, and actually one just got sold to a car auction company, where obviously they're picking up the tax base for that 50-plus acres that they have there. But I mean, I looked at everything. I know I sat with Mr. Tenzini. I can't tell you how many times when we're doing the financial policies on different revenue bases and how we can increase, new growth. I can tell you that, I don't have the numbers yet, but as far as the new school being built, that, housing prices in town are going up. I mean, I just got the new, tax appraisal value on my house. I almost fell off my chair. Yeah, I mean, things are moving in the right direction as far as, people moving in, they're purchasing properties. Contractors are purchasing properties and fixing them up and turning and flipping them. So more families are coming to town. And that's a double-edged sword, because then that's a base that hits our Narragansett Regional School District. So with their issues that they have there, our partners over there, as well as, other growth here in town as well. And it's a tax-based growth, so it's not like is it new? Yeah, I mean, is it more dollars? Potentially, but a lot of those properties that are out there that are left vacant, the mortgage companies are still paying the taxes, so it's not really new growth to us, I mean, because they're still paying. But, so we looked at everything. But my thing is, if you guys have any other suggestions, maybe that I'm not looking at or I missed, I mean, I know, I'm gonna collaborate with Cameron to see what his thought processes are on I'm not comparing this town to anybody else, just looking at us as a whole, but unfortunately, based on the system that we're in, we do have to look at what other communities are doing. Like the Ashburnhams of the world, or the Winchendons, or, the Phillipstons, and, the
At this
Atholls.
Growing immensely.
And again, I'm not talking the Wellesley and the Woobens of the world, where if you look at Woburn, tax rate's probably the same as ours, but their commercial tax rate is $19 a thousand, and they get 100% more commercial
there. So they're looking at about $130 million budget, in movement versus a $60 million budget here. There's a huge difference. But their tax rate's low because they have the industry and the commercial rate business to do that. So we don't have that here. So the only place you could go potentially is back to the people. But again, do I like it? Absolutely no. I live here. I'm already paying almost $12,000 a year in taxes. Just myself. So believe me, I got it. Yeah, I'm crying right now. Thanks, Dave. I'm crying because, but again, but we all have to do our part. We all have to take pride in our community, like we ramped up and came together for the ambulance, for the AOS service. The more pride we take and the more utilization and the collaborative work that we work with the other boards and committees, that was my biggest plan. That's why we have the all boards committee, the all boards meeting. And, that was another one of my big babies because I thought that was important to get the insight from all the boards and committees within the community to see, hey, what are you doing? This is what we're doing. How are you doing that? Because communication's gonna be key. New streams of revenue. Mr. Tanzini, obviously we talked in great length on this. Have you seen any other ways of growing this community with, obviously new growth did go up a little bit last year. I don't have the final numbers, but it did go up a little bit than versus the 60,000 that we planned in the budget.
It's not the kinds of quantum leaps that you need
Mhm.
to stabilize your budget in the face of cost increases and the needs that the school district
Mhm.
has. So we have tried to bring to your attention, whether it was adjusting building permit fees the first
Mhm.
few months I was here, or it was the meals tax.
And we did all that.
We, and
The
every
ambulance rates.
budget cycle, a different department, this year will be fire, public safety, should be looking at their revenue streams. I don't know of any, but I didn't put this item here, so I don't know what was in the mind of the person that raised it.
Okay.
Unfortunately, they're not able to be here, and we'd be more than happy to look at, anything that's raised. We have looked at one or two other things. Development Services is interested in an abandoned building property registry. Doesn't raise a lot of money, and it's really meant to create a database of, to make sure that the buildings are getting boarded up. But Lori's frankly been doing a great job
Mhm.
with the AG's office in getting things. The number of boarded and abandoned properties is actually coming down thanks to the real estate pressure. So we'll be happy to explore anything you'd like, but I think we've done a fairly decent job of bringing things to your attention as they occur to us.
And I know Diane's working that, the open space utilization policy. I know she's been working that. And I know there was small fees in that too as well for residents and non-residents, and as well as nonprofit organizations which would be free. But again, these revenue bases, like even the fire, with the fire permits, or the police department with the licenses to carry, or that, they're not really
They're just
huge.
pennies.
They're all gonna be small change.
Yeah, it's
They
all-
are just
Yeah.
nipping and tucking.
Right,
Around the edges. The meals tax is 45,000.
right.
It's big money to us, given our needs. But at the end of the day, it is economic
big bang.
expansion that have a real physical plant,
Right.
buildings. Parking lots for an auction warehouse, it's all welcome. But at the end of the day, it is physical plant, built structures that will bring you the added revenues that
Right.
you need.
Understood. And that's where we're at right now, unless anybody else has anything to. And again, I will collaborate with Cameron. And again, this is something that we should encourage, the other committees to also look into as well. Specifically
Or at least bring their ideas to us.
Right,
They
again,
wanna come and be,
We-
you gotta turn this into a positive, and you gotta bring in as many people as possible.
right.
to say, here's my idea, and here's my idea, and I like small town community, and I like this, and I like that. I'd rather not have this, but hey, why don't we go down this avenue? I mean, we are always open and ready to discuss ideas with the public. So,
Maybe we should,
you
maybe
know, they
think about some
come on out and
meetings,
chat with us. 'cause
have a couple
we'd love to
meetings
hear
here.
it, You know what I mean?
put our all, you know, I know when we did it for the meals tax, I think the first meeting would have 3 people in it.
Right. So we
When you
should have
did
a
the
meeting like
businesses.
that.
But
They-
that was a
they are more
target-
than
that was a
welcome
targeted
every 2
group.
weeks
Right.
to attend a selectman meeting, and it's a
Yeah.
phone call away to get on an agenda and say, by the way, I'm gonna sit in this chair and say, I really wanna be a positive person in Templeton and say, this is my idea of economic growth, and I just wanted to present to the board. I think we would all accept that. I know I would.
Yeah, of course. Of course,
So
we're here to listen to the
I'd rather
people.
hear that kind of conversation than, you know, others, I
Right.
guess.
Well, I mean, we could put together, not as a Board of
Streamlined
Selectmen meeting,
positive.
maybe just have some open, like, town hall discussions. You know,
Absolutely.
just to put it out there and to say, okay, let's have a town hall discussion on this date and this
There you
date concerning, revenue streams and new growth within the
Mm-hmm.
community, and how we can bring, the community back, how we can bring, pride back to Templeton, how we can, how does that happen with just, it doesn't happen with the 5 of us, I mean, it happens with the entire community. You
Yeah.
can't raise a child without a village, so I've always said that, so.
Carter, can I ask how many vacancies are on the economic growth and development? I'm sure it's a broken record at this point, but
There's 4 vacancies.
there's 4 vacancies.
Yeah, you
Just
don't,
want that to go on public record.
yeah,
Thank
there's 2 in the chair right now. We have
2.
Mr. Eaton and Mr. Castle, and both come highly recommended, both
Yeah.
with good credentials as far as what their expectations are. I mean,
Great.
do we need some other specific people, like a real estate person? Of course. There are other specific jobs based on the guidelines of the EDIC, yes. But, anybody and all residents are welcome. And if they're willing participants to help Templeton grow, then they're gonna be heard. I mean, that's the end of it. So I'll collaborate with Cameron, but I think maybe in the near future, maybe have some town hall, like, put together, so I'll work with Cameron on that.
Yeah, I mean, whatever you wanna do.
Yeah, I mean, just to maybe get, I mean, who knows I don't know how many people are gonna come, but, I mean, if we get a couple people in here, we can discuss, not as a Board of Selectmen, maybe like 1 or 2 of us, just to manage the atmosphere, and get some ideas. I mean, open the
Ideas are
doors.
always welcome, yeah.
I mean, what else can we do? I mean, right now, I think we've hit every nail that we can hit. I mean, things I looked at, I mean, maybe I'm missing something, but, excuse me?
Zoning Board of Appeals.
Mm-hmm. So, that's something, okay, thank you.
Because the answer at the end of the day is
Development.
economic growth
Yep,
Growth. Right.
of a commercial and industrial nature.
right.
Because housing has a risk of educational costs,
Right.
uncontrollable educational costs, depending upon where that particular child feels they are best educated. Vocational, aggie,
Either way, we're paying. So either they're in-house or they're outside, so,
and
Right,
one
that's in
child
fact.
going to Smith Vocational will cost you $48,000.
yep. And if there's special needs, you're looking at over 100,000 on average.
Depends, but yeah.
On average. So, you're right. All right, so, like I said, I'll collaborate with Mr. Foyt's on that one. Anything else to add on revenue streams? Processing, setting goals and objectives, and I totally forgot about you. I didn't send that sheet to you, I apologize.
Again, we did not raise this one.
Right.
It is important, you'll have your retreat. Holly and I were talking today about, a nice setting for it.
Yep.
I think that, the process hasn't been really all that bad, but in the first year or two, a lot of it was fix the finances.
Right.
A lot of it was nebulous stuff that I think we're past. And so to the extent the goals are more specific, if it's finish the Veterans Park in Baldwinville,
Oh,
if
please.
it's add a police officer, if it's, you know, adopt this policy, the more specific they are, the better we can lay them out. And so because they were kind of amorphous, we haven't done a great job of, we're gonna do this in 2019, this in 2020, this in 2021. So however, you wanna go about collecting that data and discussing it, really is up to you all. My only suggestion is that if we can make it more specific, that would be helpful.
Okay, I think more specific is important.
I can send you a list in the morning.
Yeah, but I think at the,
He's demand.
yeah, more specific is important, but, I want to go to the point that I think Cameron made as far as looking at the departments and, trying to grade or rate the departments based on the need of the dollar. I don't think any of us were degrading any of the departments, that one department was better than the other. None of us were saying that. But when you look at a budget and you look at basic management and you look at basic financial management, where you have to, I think all businesses do this at one time or another to streamline, their objective in financing. And again, make the point clear, nobody is saying that, Veteran Services is better than the Council on Aging, or the Council on Aging is better than the Highway Department, but at the end of the day, when you have to, look at the budget, and we make a vote to streamline, or, have that budget, fixed, what else are we supposed to do without looking at the services that are being provided? Because again, even when I first got elected, I think at my speech, I said, well, I'll paraphrase, but I'll quote that, you don't need to be smarter than a fifth grader to realize that if you don't have, you have two choices in this community. You can either increase revenues, or you have to decrease services. That's it. That's all you can do. There's nothing more. It's basic mathematical equations. It's basic stuff. Either you increase the services, increase financial, increase the dollars.
Cost doesn't necessarily mean services. There are lots of costs that aren't services.
There are, but I mean, we have fixed costs that we can't even look at. You look at the non-fixed costs, and yeah, I mean, and those have been looked at in great detail, not just by him, but by all of us. And that's why the insurance comes to mind right away, and how we not only affected, the ripple effect is we affected everybody, to include the employees of this town.
Those are the kinds of things that have to be looked at.
Right.
Not just, let's cut services.
Right, no, you're right.
That's not the only answer.
It is not. I mean, it's, you have to look at every.
I mean, if we truly had excess services and we're providing things that the people didn't need, that's a different story.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
we don't provide anything of excess.
Nothing
We're
of
providing.
excess.
No,
We
I don't
provide
believe so.
nothing of excess.
I don't
Okay.
believe so. I believe
Okay,
we're
I'm-
providing the services
Okay.
that the people
I'll
need.
agree to disagree,
Okay.
to some degree.
All right, I got it.
The challenge is,
I got it.
you also don't fund your expense budgets in an extravagant manner, which would easily lend themselves to being cut. The IT budget is pretty close to the teeth. Most of the departments repair, the amount of monies that we set aside for the repair of vehicles. Most of these budgets,
Right.
when you look at the year end, there were a lot of departments where you could look at their expense accounts and they were 99.3, 99.1.
Right.
I think that where,
But that's actually more positive than 4 years ago, when they were overspending their budgets.
oh, well, we
Correct?
don't.
So
let
it's gotten
them-
better.
I
We don't, you better
I
not.
don't do that.
You bet.
I think that what sticks
Yeah.
in some people's craws is this idea
I
of
think
capital
so.
rationing and
Mhm.
having to score that. So there's a way around that, to not have to revisit that every year. The board enunciated a policy when I first came here to guide the budget, that they want to deliver, for the services they provide, they want to deliver a quality level of service that properly compensates the employees and gives them, the planted facility, the rolling stock that they need to do their jobs properly.
Right.
If that remains the conviction of the board, and I think it is, that could be put into the financial management policies. And then that's the way it is, and the capital rationing, after reviewing the expenses, frankly, it just becomes a natural part of the budget process.
Right, because
Without board members having to each year face and telling, well, person X said to this department, you're the lowest rated thing. I don't think people like that process. I don't think they like the terms. I don't think the departments like hearing it. So I think that if we looked at amending the financial management policies to include the overarching approach, working in Doug's thoughts on, and I haven't quite figured out exactly how to word that, because we have looked at the expenses. We've looked at, we converted from the MedX 3 2 to 3, whichever way the numbers went.
We've done that, and we need to continue to look at that every
So
year.
that needs to be a constant process.
Right.
And we need to be bringing you a policy also, which the policy, financial planning management policy says we'll write one. So maybe we need to get to the individual policy, so that every time a job is open, the department head comes in, I want to advertise the job. Well, time out. Should we
Thank you.
provide that service? Is there a better way to provide that service? Can we contract it out? We need to make that part of the process. So I think that if you like what I'm suggesting, to take the overarching philosophy, making sure we weave into Doug's concern that it's not just looking at cutting the service, but it's looking at cutting the expense. And I think, though it's not perfect, the work that the Council on Aging did on the Meals on Wheels program is a bit of an example. I'm actually, not to tout her horn, but I'm proud of Diana. She didn't do it till we cut the budget, but that's okay. We're all like that. We all deal with everything at the last minute. But everybody's getting their 5 meals. They're getting 3 visits a week. On Monday, they get their meal, and they get a frozen the next day. And so that's worked out nicely. It's going to meet the targets. There's a few folks that need some visitations, but the family and services coordinator worked with those people to get them, a little bit more visitation. So sometimes you can have it both ways if you just look at it a little differently. Is that an approach you think
Yeah.
would meet your concerns?
So I agree in theory, and in theory, yes, we want, the best quality service with the highest pay or best paid employee for what they do and the best rolling stock on the road. However, the reality is we can't afford to have the best rolling stock on the road. We can't afford to pay every employee the quality of the work that they do. So
I think
while it's a nice
I think the phrase would be
philosophical-
adequately compensated and adequately, because you're right, we're not Weston, we're not Wellesley, we're not Moldenboro.
Yep.
We're not gonna be having all the brand new stock. But I also need stock
It's going to do the job.
to do the job, so that in August, and when I ask, why isn't the street sweeping finished? The answer is, well, sweeper's down again. And I can't do catch basin cleaning till the sweeping's finished. You don't clean the catch basin.
Yeah, so I agree,
that's-
I'm just trying to point out, we can't use a philosophy that
No.
is no way in relationship to reality.
So let me use the phrases adequately, and let me try to get that out,
Okay,
for some discussion.
sure.
As well. I'm hoping Holly's making these notes of these things I've promised to have to you in 10 days to 14 days.
You gotta go back. All right, that sounds like a plan.
And then we would, at the retreat, not deal with the rationing question.
Okay. Sounds good to me. Human resource management, I again, this is one of the, number one, Cameron's was talking about, having like a human resource person in the office that handle like all the, human resource issues that come up, versus having, the town administrator, being that same person, which is in his job description to a certain degree. So I don't know what more he wanted to discuss on that. I mean, I know we had some discussion with you briefly.
And I'll say, granted, I agree that I think we do need somebody in that role. However, again, it's down to the budget. We can't afford to hire somebody with the caliber to do that. It's not, you can't just pluck a person off the street and have them deal with HR matters. So if we're going to pursue this, we need to be able to look at, does another town have a human resource person that they would share for a day or something like that? Or as we need them, that kind of thing. We're gonna have to find some creative way to fill that position.
I've had a discussion with two entities that I would prefer remain nameless. The first one said, can't afford it, don't want nothing to do with it, I don't have that many problems, I deal with the stuff. The second one said, if I had that kind of money, I would want a person who concentrated on the procurement, because that's where all my time is lost. That's the thing that really takes up the energy. I don't know exactly what they had in mind. If we can continue to make progress, our office puts the jobs out to advertisement. Holly does all of the query and the background checks, and she does their initial intake on what they're enrolling in and gives that packet to accounting.
Who does all the management of the benefits packages that are provided?
Once people are enrolled, generally there aren't that many changes, and accounting should be able to do that. We've got, a new assistant town accountant coming in September 1. Yeah, September 1, I think. I think they're gonna do a good job for us. They do the open enrollment. Health insurance, the actual bidding of it, dealing with the IAC, everything else, because there's so many nuances, and you need to know your stuff a little bit.
It's a skill. to be-
That, even in the towns that have HR managers, most of the towns of our size, 8, 10, 12, 15,000 people, that's generally dealt with by the town administrator, unless you get up into 14, 15, 16. Sometimes it's the assistant town manager, and their portfolio's the HR stuff and the insurance.
I see.
On the evaluations, we don't have a form.
Okay.
If I can get that form finished, we have the draft that's starting to circulate. Then we need to figure out a process of how to make sure that everybody's doing those.
The director is gonna be doing those on the,
Yeah, your personnel plan policy calls for them to be done on people's anniversaries.
yes.
Frankly,
We need to change that
that's a
to-
flippin' nightmare.
We need to change it to an annual
Unless
date.
you have a real HR function that's, doing the tracking and sending them out. You need to change them.
We need to change that. We need an addendum
Change
to
it.
that
Right,
policy
So that, in the last community, they were all done,
by September 1.
no, because the raises didn't go into effect till January 1. You don't wanna be doing your evaluations in August and September, and then having somebody sitting there September, October, November, December, wondering about what their pay raise is gonna be, and if they don't get the raise they thought they should have gotten, there's a complete disconnect. You really need to have your evaluation process done tightly and closely to when that raise is gonna come in,
Now,
so that there's a real clear association.
we've been annually doing our town raises, October 1, correct?
Well, it's floated around a little bit. A lot of years you did them never. A couple of years, you've done them on July 1. Last year, we did them on October 1, because then we knew what the town meeting had appropriated the budget.
Right. Yeah, so it needs to be, after July 1 or later, but not later than October. And evaluation should be done in
So if
May,
you-
June timeframe.
So,
April,
so,
May.
well, I
April,
would
May.
even say, do your evaluations in late August to mid-September. You're finished by mid-September, and then you come in, you get the transfers, and people, there's only less than 6 weeks between when you had their eval and you gave them the raise.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm saying, that we
It's a
can,
closer tight timeframe, I think's important.
well, I think we should maintain the October 1. I mean,
And then you're down to disciplines.
Mhm.
And truthfully, that's the responsibility of the department heads. How well they do that is something they should be evaluated on.
that's,
Uh, But it's also something that you bloody well better write the letters correctly, do it right.
right.
And here, that's been the town administrator. Now, one of the concerns was we're losing people. So it's important to understand why. To lament losing somebody who quit because they were being held accountable, I think does a disservice to the department head who was trying to hold them accountable. So that's why we've started this, in your read file every week, I'll do an update on the personnel of what's going on, so you have a better insight into things. So now you're down to if someone has a complaint about me. Well, in these smaller towns, I haven't generally noticed employees being too shy about whispering in the ear of one of their select board members. We can create a grievance process. And in, let's see now, in the 6 years, the most recent 6 years, I've had 2 complaints. They were both referred to town council. They were both fully vetted. The select boards got the reports, and both were cleared because the employees have an avenue. So I'm not exactly sure how you want to proceed, but hiring a competent, knowledgeable HR person is costly.
Very.
Because somebody who doesn't know what they're doing and makes a mistake will cost you.
Even
Time.
more.
Yeah. So I think the point that you made from one of the folks you talked to about how having somebody help with procurement would be more important to them. Because while procurement, yes, there is some skill that's needed, it's not nearly as much as the HR. So if you could relieve you from having to do a lot of procurement stuff, then that gives you more time to focus on the truly skill stuff of HR. So I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think that, that was on Diane's, maybe I can get Diane and we can lock in what the procurement process is really gonna be. Because it's really been a little bit hit or miss.
See, and that wouldn't necessarily have to be somebody additional that we hire or somebody from outside that we have to
It'd be an
hire.
additional
We
duty to
could
somebody else.
tag, right, we could tag somebody internally already to help with these kinds of procurement issues,
Right.
Having good policies in place that are simply followed, so that, what happens here a lot is, every time something comes up, not every time, but often when something comes up, it's like, it's the first time. And people spend that churn of, well, what do I do now?
I got you. Okay.
But again, this is not something we had on the agenda.
No, I'm sure that, Cameron will be watching this tomorrow. Hi, Cam. So once he sees this, obviously, with his 2 cents, I would hope that he would either respond to me or respond to you. And obviously, we can bring this up again, if he wants to, elaborate more, on a specific item.
I think it's a great discussion for the retreat.
Okay. I'll make sure he's aware of that.
And Holly, maybe tomorrow we can circulate out to everybody just a reminder of the retreat, so that they can be sure to have it on their schedules, please.
Last item on the agenda, relations with others, obviously school, business, neighbors, employees, et cetera. Again, another one of Cameron's objectives. I can only elaborate, like, with our partners out there, with the Narragansett Regional School District, I mean, I do hold them as partners. I think a relationship with them, with the town administrator and the superintendent, I think, is very important. Getting together and communicating that, I think, is also important. You know, so as far, and same with the businesses. I mean, he was talking about getting out to talk to business owners and stuff like that, which I think is important too. You know, and same with neighbors and anybody else that we communicate with. Us as elected officials, if there's issues, problems, you know, that are out there in the community, we're gonna hear about them some way, somehow, either by text, by email, by Facebook, by other social media names. You know, obviously my, what did Mr. May say?
LinkedIn.
My LinkedIn account, yeah, I mean, it was great that he brought that up, because, I mean, I haven't touched that social media network account since, for like 4 years. So I went in and, you know, changed some pictures and, you know, added some stuff. I don't know, I mean, but everybody, I mean, that's why we're here. We're here to take those issues. I mean, he had valid concerns and issues. He came here and expressed them, and, you know, I've been all over it since, with the town clerk, with Holly, trying to find out, you know, why is this the way this is? Why are these problems continuously happening with some of these programs, specifically, you know, what's that local town government program, where all the meetings are scheduled and stuff like that? That's, I mean, you know, I know there's other committees that are having issues too. I know I talked to Mr. Bennett about the advisory committee and him scheduling meetings in that program, and, you know, how it's really, have you been in that program? Oh, God, it's you really can't maneuver too well in there. But there's stuff on there since February, of last February, and I looked at it myself, and, you know, I mean, there's a lot of people on that list that have been gone for years, moved away, or, you know, et cetera. So, I mean, there's a lot of issues with that program. But again, having that communication, I think, is key. So obviously coming here, I think, is important, listening to the folks. You know, I don't know what more, I don't know, I mean, I'm out, I know you're out. I know Diane's definitely out. She's definitely a social media butterfly network person, and so I know, and she's always coming in here, and she's always, you know, talking to Mr. Tenzini. So, I mean, and as we all are. I think this board really has, you know, I think, as a strong leadership board, I think it has its ability to reach the people. I don't know what more he wants to discuss concerning this, unless you have something, Doug. I don't know. I mean.
No, I mean, I do think, you know, especially when it, you know, it comes to the budget time, especially, you know, that we need to keep, you know, collaboration with the, you know, the school committee and the advisory committee, you know, those, you know, it just helps make the process better for everybody.
Right. Because the other one doesn't know what the other one's doing.
Right.
So if you don't have that communication, you don't know what they're thinking or what you're thinking.
Yeah.
I mean, the advisory might not know that, you know, we have, you know, a 3-year issue with this, and that's why it's this way.
Right.
You know, but having that collaboration and communication, I think, is key. Same with the school committee, because again,
Yeah.
you know, we, once they dump the school committee budget and they send it to us, I mean, we have a rough draft when?
We
Carter?
actually got it early last year
We did.
because we
Pushed it.
spoke with the superintendent, and he concurred that a tri-town or tri-board meeting would be a good idea. But it was February 15. I mean, we need it by February 15.
Right, and that's on a
That would-
good year.
My objective is to have a draft budget by February 15. And that can be a bit of a challenge, especially remember the first year of a governor's term, he doesn't have to even give the budget to the legislature till February 15.
Right. So it doesn't come out till like April, right?
Well, no, it's February 15, but if I'm gonna have a budget to you by February 28, that only gives me a few days to work.
Gotcha.
And then a final budget by March 15. So I will let you know that the superintendent and I had spoken about trying to improve our relations, communications.
Mhm.
the regularity, because we're pretty good about communicating, but often it's at the last minute of oh my God. So we had lunch today, and we're planning to do that once a month
Good.
going forward. And we shared a couple ideas. The school interns might be terminated as a program for some problem issues they're having with scheduling. He wondered if some of our work-off candidates might work in the school district. We see no reason why not. So we talked some ideas around, and he's looking to improve, not necessarily to have all the full boards meeting all the time, but maybe a smaller subset of meeting occasionally, because he knows that communication needs to improve as well.
Okay.
On the neighbors, you've seen the Laurel View meetings. We're doing Talk of the Town. We told Highway that before any future projects can be done in a neighborhood, they're to have a neighborhood meeting. So again,
Unless it's an emergency, obviously,
yes, of course.
like a broken water pipe or something.
So we don't want the first time a neighborhood to know a project's happening is when the
Machines.
milling machine rolls in. That doesn't work out well. If there are ideas for Talk of the Town, let me know. We'll reach out. We'll get that person in, try to do that. The businesses, when we have something impacting them, as you saw with the meals program, we made sure to invite them. One thing that I did do in some past communities, I frankly just don't have the time to do right now. Because economic development is not just about new businesses coming to town. But 65% of all the jobs in this nation are created by small businesses. And Flexcon, 900 employees, started literally with two guys in a garage. They're not Hewlett Packard, and it's not Steve Jobs and Gus, or whatever the fellow's name is. And I used to do what I call a business visitation program. I would pick one business a month, go, see how they were doing, seeing what they needed, see if there was something we could do to be of assistance. And sometimes it was simple as, can I get a permit to do this? I can't get rid of my scrap metal at the transfer station. Can you help us out? What can we do? But I honestly, I don't have the time to add that.
I know,
Is that something we could have the EDIC members do?
If we had an EDIC, that would be a perfect EDI, strike that. If we had members on the committee,
right. We have,
that would be perfect, and you do, you pick a business, and you call them up, and you arrange ahead of time, and you go, and you see what they do. I didn't know what this one company did until I went there, and the guy showed me all of his machines, and who he did it for, and how he did it, and his big problem was he had these milling machines, Doug, and he had piles and piles and piles of scrap metal that the transfer station wouldn't take because it would get loose, it would blow all over the place, it made a flippin' mess. So we got a small baler for him.
Yep.
He baled the stuff. So we'll take it. We gave him the baler. We got a small grant to pay for it. He thought that was terrific. If we hadn't gone and visited him, he would have continued to curse us. He cursed us probably a little bit less once we got him the baler and took his millings. But that kind of thing can be important. Even if it doesn't create job growth, it can create
a relationship.
positive community relations for when they're talking with another business owner who says, what's it like to do business in Templeton? But that takes warm bodies to go do that. And they need to be skilled in not over-promising and making sure we get the information to research to be of assistance. Beyond that, we're open to anything short of strapping a sandwich board to our backs and walking up and down the street. We're open to any way that you think we can better communicate with folks.
Do you have anything in thought process in mind about that? With communication?
I have a small thing, someone, with the communication
Mhm.
piece.
Sure.
Because I've seen it over the years that I've been on the board. It's actually decreased quite a few in the last couple of years, and I'm not looking at any particular department. But I think that if we have citizens that are concerned about a specific issue, and we have a manager of one of the 4 departments in the town available on the evening that someone comes in with a concern at a selectman meeting, I think that's a good thing. I think that it shows that if we can't, as a
Mhm.
group, answer that and have to ask you, as the town administrator, to get back to this person, I don't think that's good communication. I think if you have department heads readily available in front of a camera at a Board of Selectmen meeting and someone has a concern with the road, you're capable of saying, excuse me, so-and-so,
Mhm.
do you have a minute to answer that question for this person? Do they not get paid to do that? I mean, I'm just concerned that it's not always readily available, even for one of us, if we had a concern. I had a concern about a speed limit. Couldn't get the opinion of a management level personnel in the town of Templeton. And I know that we can't ask them or tell them how to do their jobs, I understand that. But if they were more visible, we meet every 2 weeks, even if they were able to come once a month and mix it up, you know what I mean? Like, they're there to answer questions if we have
If the question was
concerns.
coming in.
And of course, and people get on this, we knew we had questions coming in. We couldn't
We
answer.
could try to
put
do
people
that.
on hold.
Let me tell you.
So if we could clear that up a little, that'd be great.
Let me tell you what scares the bejesus out of me. Somebody comes in, asks a question, and somebody answers them.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you how many times the answer is wrong,
Mhm.
or it's not carefully thought out,
Okay.
and you end up in a situation of, you find out after you take the question apart,
Mhm.
and you look at the legal issues and you look at the financial issues, that you didn't really give a good answer, and you end up backpedaling on it. So, yes, we should always get answers to people, but I don't want you to undervalue the merit of giving careful, well-thought-out, accurate answers. We were talking last night a little bit about this, and I said, I worked with an attorney out in Michigan. He was at every single board meeting. I tried to get the city council to stop because it was costing money. The mayor said, no, we need him here. We need him here at every meeting because we have questions. I can almost, I can tell you with some real certainty that virtually every next morning, he was calling me with, upon reflection, and starting to dance and revise his answer.
Okay,
Once he'd
whatever.
gone and pulled the law book.
But they see it. They see it the Thursday before a Monday night. I'm sorry. If someone that runs a department in the town of Templeton sees that there's a citizen coming in with a concern on Monday night, and it affects their department, would they not want to be there to communicate if they can help
Oh, if
that
it's
citizen?
on the agenda.
If it's on the actual agenda,
If it's on the agenda, and we get very few of those. I can't even recall the last time.
but there's a reason why we don't get, okay. I understand what you're saying. Okay, I'm good. I'm done.
Okay, if it's on the agenda, then obviously I
Yeah.
think that the director should be here, or the department head should be here. Kind of like the issue that we had with the sewer thing last meeting. It would have been nice to have a nice briefing from the superintendent of the
Yes.
sewer department to brief us on the process of what's going on
I
there.
probably should have said to the sewer superintendent, it would be a good idea to be there.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
has he,
We can do that.
because I would still like to, obviously, see him. Wouldn't you like to see him? Have a nice conversation, see how that project's going? I mean, it's only, just over $1 million worth of project, which, I think we should have a
2.4.
2.4 million.
Mhm.
And that way the people
Agree.
can see it
Templeton
too,
PD.
you know?
Match.
All right. Your point's well noted.
We
Thank you,
can improve
Julie.
on that when there are specific agenda items. Sure.
It just, when people catch us off guard, Like, when.
It's unfortunate, and then the next
it's like I
day,
have-
it's social nonsense all over town. So
Yep.
to die that down a little bit, if a department head sees that a person has an issue, because trust me, I was one of those taxpaying citizens a few years back. Oh, somebody called and said, heads up, she's coming in, she has a concern with her road.
Bud was
You
here.
had all 4 department heads sitting here, and the person at the front desk and the people on this committee were referring to them one by one, can you answer that question, can you answer that? Because they're qualified. So all I'm saying is, it's not landing a lot of times, and I'm talking about the communication piece. She's not getting phone calls from residents of the town of Templeton, because they don't feel confident that John can answer the question, or Doug, or Julie can answer a question. They're not gonna call and get on the agenda, because they know they may or may not have a person that can have the qualifications to answer their question. And my concern is, if those people see that an issue is coming up on a Thursday by 3 PM, they have till Monday to do their homework and not get the question wrong. That's all I have to say about that.
But at the
You're
point in
right.
time you're talking, we didn't have a town administrator. The select board is who ran the town. and
So
the
you
select board
contacted
didn't
people
have-
about,
Hmm?
so you contacted people and said, oh, look what's coming up on the agenda?
No.
'Cause at the time you had the prior
People came
one.
because the select board isn't here every day. So the town departments were the ones that had to respond to the questions, because
Oh,
they're
they
the ones that
had to.
knew.
So they
it.
don't have
We
to
have
now.
a professional town
Okay, I
administrator
Well,
now.
they still.
And
Good.
when
I'm
they
good.
did do that, there were occasions that we ended up having to backpedal, because, again, the question needed some more thought than just an immediate response.
Prime example, when that young lady brought up the fencing issue up on Dudley Road and South Road. Now, that was during open discussion, public comments. And she had a folder full of
Right,
stuff, and
that's
she
a
had
little
all this
different.
other
It
stuff.
wasn't on the agenda.
And I'm like, I'm like, I understand.
Right.
Leave your packet with Holly, and one of us, or the town administrator, will get back to you, and that was resolved last meeting, with the resolution that we all signed. But if somebody's coming in here and it's a known item on the agenda, then yes, I think that the department head or the directorate should be here to represent that said department or that, and typically they are. I think there's been only a couple occasions that, they haven't been here.
But I think we could be more vigilant about it, the sewer bond issue,
That's huge. We've been asking, and I know that I can speak for Diane. We've been asking for a representative from that department for 2 years now.
and with due respect, as I try to crank up some pressure and pull them in, I have other members of the board who are never mind.
Okay, I understand where you're going with that.
Okay,
Undercutting is a word
I
that
got
comes
you.
to mind.
I got you. Undermining.
But let me say that when, bad judgment call on our part, because frankly, you didn't have a choice. If that bond issue was not
Of course we didn't.
reauthorized, you would have been in default.
Then we would have been penalized huge.
But
Oh.
shame on me, we'll do a better job, of making sure that when there's something for a department, we'll have the representative here for you.
And even if they can't make it, if they can send a statement, like Mr. Cameron decided, okay, I can't be there for other obligations, I'm gonna send a statement tonight. It's just out of respect for your taxpaying citizens.
Because I think the people want to,
The people wanna see these.
they want to see them too, and not, they
Sure.
just want to see our smiling faces. I think they want to see, the people that do the work, that where the rubber meets the road. They want to see those folks. Now, they can hear from you all day long. They can hear from us, 2 days a month. But at the end of the day, their tax dollars are paying their salary. So if there's something specific concerning a director or a department, and it's on the agenda, and they know it's on the agenda, then they should be there too.
We can do that, and we'll try to expand the quarterly reports across the entire organization.
Great. That opens more communication.
And the weekly reports, if we could get someone in each department to give a
We'll
little
continue
bit.
to work on.
That would be fantastic, because when you see a department and I'm reading my weekly report and I go, really? Nothing in that department? Nothing happened in the last 7 days.
We've,
Somebody didn't have time to type a blurb. You know
we've,
what I mean?
we've spoken at the staff meeting on that, and we'll continue to seek improvement in that quarter.
Great.
Absolutely.
Anybody else have anything to add? Because that completes the agenda items on this list. Mr. Tenzino, do you have anything to add?
I don't, we've got a full schedule ahead of us here over the next few months. I think that if we could have out to the board members, whatever you're gonna circulate to them for the retreat, if we could get that out by 1 September,
Okay.
that would be tremendous. If someone wants to join us on October, what'd we say?
29th?
23, 29, I forget, we'll get the
29th.
date out. And we will need
August 29th.
a make or break decision around that time as to which direction you wanna go in.
Okay.
And there's risks with each avenue, I mean,
Yeah,
we've tried to lay those out for you.
Yeah, I think I
I
understand.
think they're well laid out. I appreciate that.
Right, I think, again, with Plan A and the Plan B, I think at the end of the
Plan
day.
A, Plan B, and Plan C,
Well, right,
each one has its risks.
right. I mean, and this town realizes that, and I think this town has felt that for many years, and, but again, I think we owe it to them to have some type of plan in writing as far as what we're gonna do, what our plan and thought process is going forward.
In terms of recruitment, I do wanna say it's important, this is one job that you're not that far out of the marketplace. But it's also a position that no matter what you were to offer for pay, is under great pressure to receive enough suitable applications.
Right,
All of the guys that I start, just another one, today announced his resignation, his retirement. And there's just not enough new people coming into the field.
yeah, okay. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A second?
Second?
Any other discussion? I see none. Doug?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Thank you all for coming.